call this to order and ask everyone to join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Before we proceed, Megan, Stacy, can you hear us all right? Can we hear you?
Yes, I can hear.
Hi, Stacy. How about you, Meg? Maybe Meg will let us know when.
She's unmuted.
She is, okay. All right. Then we'll move ahead. All right. Approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Thanks, Sarah. Is there a second?
A second.
Thanks, Kim. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Approval of consent agenda. On tonight's consent agenda, we have the approval of the September 19th, 2023 Board of Ed regular meeting minutes, as well as a donation from Shutterfly Life Touch to Valley View Elementary School. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Thanks, Kim. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Tim. Any discussion? Nope. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Audience of citizens. Do we have anyone with us in person who wishes to address the board this evening? Do we have anybody online with us who would like to address the board at this point?
Might have one. Just give me a second to
Absolutely, sure.
Nothing in the chat yet.
Okay, thank you. And there's a second opportunity at the end of the meeting. All right. The next item is our Portland Public Schools Spotlight, and this evening I believe we have a plethora of items from Gildersleeve that Ryan is going to share with us. If you could come to the podium, Ryan.
Good evening. So we decided that rather than sharing one large thing, spotlighting one large thing, that we would share three smaller things that we have started to do in the last year, I guess, for all three at Gildersleeve. So the first thing we're going to share is our Rise, some information about our Beehive Rise snack shop. As most of you know, Rise is the special education program we have at our school that includes students with a variety of different needs and disabilities. And that was a great program, or a great component of that program that was started just last year. So we have our Rise teacher, Nicole Ringette. She's new with us this year and also doing grad school classes in the evening. So she is not here with us this evening, but Sarah McLaughlin, our district-wide BCBA, works closely with Nicole and is going to share about the Beehive Snack Shop. And after that, we're going to share about our Crazy 8 Club, which is a math club that Mrs. Scoville and Mrs. Sonstrom, Sarah Sonstrom, one of our other Gildersleeve teachers, started last year. And then we'll finish with our Gildersleeve Yearbook Club, which Megan Franklin, she is one of our paraprofessionals sitting on the end over here. She started this last year with a few of her colleagues, and it was a huge success. So I will turn it over to Sarah first to talk about the snack shop.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So as Ryan mentioned, our RISE program is a special education program at Gildersleeve that serves students with who require significant adapted curriculum, life skill instruction, academic instruction, and functional skill instruction. So this is some of the pre-vocational learning that we do, but it really provides an opportunity for them to do high-interest, hands-on tasks that work on their social skills, communication skills, following directions, sequencing, and also fine and gross motor skills. But basically what it is it's a fully self-sustaining snack shop for staff at Gildersleeve School, not for students, unfortunately, though they are very jealous when they see the Diet Coke and the candy going around the school. But it was fully funded by donations, and it's self-sustaining, so everything we make in the store just goes back into restocking it and the things that the students need to work. If you want to flop to the next slide, you can see some more fantastic pictures. Everything that we do is really adapted to meet our learners' needs. So for example, this is our order form, and it's adapted for students who are pre-readers or non-readers. So when the students are stocking orders, or stocking the shelves, or stocking orders for staff, they can match a picture of the item. The items are also kept in bins that are numbered, so students who are able to match numbers, for example, are able to find the items and complete the orders even if they're a non-reader. We also put a picture of every staff member at the top of the order, so for students who might not know the name of a staff or be able to read their name, would be able to use the picture to navigate the school and deliver that order to that person. So it really gets them out in the community and interacting with students and staff whom they wouldn't normally interact with. So it's a really great opportunity for that exposure as well. Go to the next slide. Here's some more great pictures. This is a full week event, so we really follow kind of a set schedule. So they create the order forms, they deliver the forms to staff, they fill them, they deliver them, and then our older students sort the money into our cash register and do some change making skills. But really our goal here is to increase independence, so we follow a really set schedule. Everything is very adaptive so that it's not a staff run thing that students are sporting with. It's really the students that are able to take the ownership and the agency and do these things because they're practicing them in the same way every single week. Next slide. We do play Dolly Parton 9 to 5 to let them know that it's time to start the workday. If you're ever at Gildersleeve, please come down to room 27 and 28 at the end of the day when they're doing this, because there's some fantastic dance moves that come out at this time. But the students are just really proud of themselves. As you can see, it's just such a great, high engaging activity for them to work on all the things that they're working on in their individualized programming. So again, if you come visit us at Gildersleeve, please come down to room 2728. The RISE staff is really just a fantastic team, just making everything to foster independence and foster learning in our students. So please come visit us. We would love to have you. And you can get candy, Coke, Diet Coke, all the things that are banned from schools you can get in this way. So come on down.
Good evening. The Crazy 8 Math Club is an after-school club. We've started it with second graders. It is completely funded by the Bedtime Math Foundation. They provide all of the activities and materials for 3 8-week programs for 16 students. And their intent is for students to just gain a love of math through high-energy, high-interest activities. Could you go to the next slide? This slide gives a brief description of the first session's 8 activities, and each of the activities require that the students work together and share their mathematical thinking. Every week explores a new concept using hands-on activities and a variety of engaging materials. Some of the things that students are using are hacky sacks. They've used playing cards, bouncy dice, neon glow sticks, and toilet paper. And at the end of each session, they're able to take many of the materials home so that they can share the activities with their families. The pictures that you see here are from our club last year when we did neon geometry. The students had to work to create shapes. They made quadrilaterals and triangles of different sizes, and then they had to work together as a team to create a repeating pattern of polygons on the floor, and it had to fit together without any gaps or spaces. One of their favorite activities was our final activity, and that was the Toilet Paper Olympics. And this began by students measuring 1 square of toilet paper and using that as a benchmark measure to estimate, measure, and compare the distance that they jumped in the long jump event and how far they could toss a roll of toilet paper in the shot put event. Last year we were only able to participate in the first 8-week session, but this year we're excited to be participating in all 3 of the 8-week events. And our new club is starting in November with 16 second grade students. Thank you.
So when I went to Gildersleeve, we had a yearbook. And when I started 3 years ago, there wasn't a yearbook anymore. So last year, I had asked Ryan if I could create a yearbook with the 4th grade students to capture their memories of being at Gildersleeve School. So I take only 4th grade students, and we meet on Tuesdays after school, and they enjoy getting to create the yearbook and put their memories in it. They loved being able to pick out their own backgrounds because technology has come so far, and there is so many different types of backgrounds and designs that they really enjoyed looking through and picking out and adding the pictures of their teachers and their classmates, and just organizing the pages and how they wanted it to look. So on the pages that the students did, because there's a lot of pages and I only had about 25 students last year, their name is, they get credit for each of their designs on the bottom of the page, which is really cool for their other classmates to see their creative expertise. So, thank you.
So I'd like to thank these. I'd like to thank these three staff members for coming out this evening. And do you have any questions for me or for them about these clubs?
Is the snack shop every week, or is it just one week during the year?
Every week. So they put in orders on Monday, they deliver the order forms. On Friday they paste them, and then we deliver them Tuesday, staff them back by Wednesday. We fill Wednesday, Thursday, and then Thursday or Friday is delivery day, depending on if there's school on Monday or not. So every single week.
So you can keep the yearbook, pass it around, look at it this evening, and then maybe Dr. Britton, you can hang on to it and help it find its way back to Gildersleeve. So thank you.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. All right. Next up is our student representative report, and I believe Dr. Britton is going to introduce us to our new student representative.
Excited. So last 2 weeks ago, you met Liam, and he now has a wing person. So I'm very excited. I met with Caitlin Walsh last week, right? Was it Thursday we met?
Yeah.
And I was very impressed. She's a remarkable student here at Portland High School. She's going to bring a lot to this board and sharing her perspective and all kinds of information. But Caitlin, I thought I would embarrass you a little bit and maybe give you a chance to introduce yourself and get to know the members of the board, and maybe if we could introduce ourselves to Caitlin.
My name is Caitlin Walsh. I am a junior at Portland High School. I'm involved in numerous sports, clubs, activities, extracurriculars, and I would like to thank Dr. Britton and Ms. Lawson for giving me the opportunity to become a student representative on the board.
Well, we're happy to have you. Thank you.
Yeah. Do we want to zip around the table and just introduce ourselves to Caitlin? Do you want to start?
Yeah.
Trisha, why don't you start?
Yeah.
There we go.
Trisha Dean, I'm the executive assistant to the superintendent.
Dave Murphy, board member.
Kim Nagy-Rumchak, board member.
Thank you. We've met.
I'm Laurel Steinhauser, I chair the board.
Tim Lavoy, board member.
And Sarah Spear, board member.
It's nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you.
Thanks, Donna, board member on Zoom. And Stacy Benham, board member on Zoom. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we're so glad you're here, and we said it to Liam at the last meeting, but I'll say it to you as well, Caitlin, that we're delighted for you to be here, and just stick around if you're able through our meetings, and feel free to ask questions and participate, as you feel comfortable. We really do value your voices, and we're glad you're here.
Thank you.
So do you have a report for us tonight?
Portland High School clubs and activities are in full swing. DECA, our business club, is taking 10 students to a conference in Texas in November. They've been fundraising a lot recently, and recently they've held their annual mum sale, and as usual it was a success. The sophomore auction is in March of this school year, but planning meetings are already happening. Math League has been competing, and the engineering club has started to meet. These are in addition to the many clubs and activities, the many club and activity offerings that happen all year at PHS. Portland High School offers a great deal of extracurricular activities for our students, and new clubs are being added every year.
Regarding the current events at Portland High School, today, October 3rd, 9 students were invited to the AquaTurf to attend a CIAC Sportsmanship and Leadership Conference. The students heard from numerous coaches and CIAC board members about what it means to be a student athlete and the honor of representing one school through athletics. They enjoyed a nice lunch with other athletes from the state, as well as Portland Athletic Director Mr. Cardona. Speaking of sports, our athletic teams are all having amazing seasons. Boys soccer continues to win their games, and boys and girls cross country is scheduled to leave for Thetford, Vermont this Friday for their Saturday meet. The Portland Marching Band traveled up to Massachusetts in late September to take part in the Big E Parade. Students had an amazing time enjoying themselves during the day, while later on representing the Portland Music Department while marching. The seniors have also been working on putting together their yearbook submissions for senior quotes, ads, and grids, and they are also holding an online fundraising event by Tastefully Simple, selling sauces and seasonings, as well as baking items just in time for the holiday season. These products are great gifts and serve as meal planning assistance as well. And arguably the most exciting news, the annual musical for PHS was announced last week, and the musical for this year is Matilda, and the students can't be more excited.
Awesome.
That is exciting. Thank you both. Do we have any questions for our student reps? No? All right. Thank you both. All right, Dr. Britton.
Sure. I have a few updates for you from the past couple of weeks. First, I want to give a shout out and extend congratulations to Eric Martin, Chuck Hershon, Corey Toussaint, and Alan Steckloff. Last week, they presented at a conference called the Ignite conference, and their presentation was on how we evaluate our students against the vision of the graduate, which we see over here, using our student success plans and the individual projects that students do in 8th grade. They're sort of capstone projects that are coming out of 8th grade. I followed up with Chuck and Eric and asked how it went afterwards, and they said that theirs was, aside from the keynote, the most well-attended session. Is that correct?
We had the most well-attended breakout session that wasn't directly from one of the keynote speakers.
So a lot of interest in this across the state. I think that's great. So thank you for doing that. You know, those are wonderful things. So I know it's a lot of extra work, and you know you have to submit to these conferences and be accepted and invited. But it's a great thing to do, and you know really puts us on the map. And I appreciate you doing that and sharing some of the awesome things that are going on here in Portland. So well done, and thank you for that. A couple of other updates. So last time we met, I shared with you that we had, as is often the case, some late-breaking news about the second round of that indoor air quality HVAC grant. And I shared a letter that I had given to you all, the First Selectman and the Board of Selectmen, with some information about that. You know, obviously the timing of it, again, is very poor. It would be very nice if they lined these things up with budget development so we could develop a capital improvement budget that would serve as the seed money for our matching portion of it. But, you know, it's an opportunity. I don't think it's something we should let go by with it, at least exploring it. So tomorrow at 1 o'clock, Stephanie, Bob Shea, and I are going to attend the pre-application webinar and get a lot of information. I have a ton of questions, a lot of questions at that, and I imagine a lot of other superintendents and folks from towns across the state that are interested in accessing this many millions of dollars to address indoor air quality issues are going to ask. What I will do is I'll take all of that information, I'll package it up for everybody, and hey, nothing ventured, nothing gained. And I think it's at least worth opening a conversation with the town about and seeing if this is something we want to pursue.
Do you have a date yet to present to the Board of Selectmen on this, or are we waiting until after the meeting tomorrow?
Waiting till after the meeting tomorrow. Yeah, the only deadline we have is we know it's a pretty aggressive application deadline. It is December 31st. So we have to move relatively quickly in addition to all of the other things we have going on. But again, I think I think the takeaways from tomorrow will help inform our thinking about whether it's worth it, whether it's something we should pursue, and I will surely be able to share that information with you before our next board meeting. Now, in fairness, our next board meeting, we are already late into October. We have to move quick, right? We have to engage a lot of people in a lot of conversations if we're going to move forward on this. So I want to bring it up now, and please understand that I may be preempting the next board meeting by email and some conversations and some recommendations that come out of that webinar tomorrow. Okay.
Sounds good. Thanks.
All right. Along those lines, I just want to give you an update. I've been having a very interesting experience writing and drafting out some of the ed specs reports. So, as we all know, there are three things happening with respect to the Facility Study Committee recommendations. The first one is that the Board of Selectmen formed this Municipal Building Studies Committee. Dave is on that committee. I know they haven't met yet. I would encourage them to meet and get going. I know that committee has a lot of work. In parallel to that, I'm working on these draft ed specs reports. I finished one. I have 3 to write. I shared them with the first one with the leadership team last Friday. I'm going to share the second one this Friday, and the third one the Friday after this. So my hope is that by the end of the week, I've gotten some pretty good feedback from not only the leadership team, but I'm going to engage a lot of people in the process of vetting these out. I think that the next best step after I start to move from maybe first draft to second draft form, I'm going to engage the building committee, our Buildings and Grounds Committee. And then I'm hoping that, sometime in the November timeframe, we're having some discussions at the board level. So I don't want to get too far ahead of you. I am working on that. I'm pretty proud of some of the things we've put together. They're ambitious, but as we know, we have a lot of work to do on our facilities. So both with the Municipal Studies Committee going, the ed specs being developed, and then tonight I'm looking forward to getting your feedback on this survey that I included in your packet that I got last Friday, that we've been asked to give feedback on it that would go out, I suspect, within the next couple of weeks, and we'd be collecting the data from that and feedback from the entire community, because this would be a canvas of everybody in town by the end of January. So things are moving forward. I want to make sure everybody's on the same page and aware of what's happening. So I'll stop there and see if there are any questions about either the Municipal Studies Building Committee, the ed specs development, or this survey, which again we're going to talk about a little bit later. Okay, very good. All right. It came up last meeting, a question about whether we're still submitting to the state or to the board the teacher ratings. Historically, in the past, the board and the state has requested the numbers and percentage of teachers who are rated at the exemplary, proficient, developing, or below standard level. As a reminder, we're no longer required to do that. So the state is not asking us to share that information with the state or with the board. The only expectation is that we're sharing with the state and the board the fact that we're still following the board-approved teacher evaluation plan. So be confident that we are still doing that, and otherwise you're not going to get, nor is the state going to get from us, again, the number of teachers in each of those rating bands, but information that we are still following the current teacher evaluation models, both for certified and non-certified employees in the district. And I know that came up last board meeting, so I'd be happy to answer any questions if anybody had one.
Did that information used to get shared with boards?
It did before COVID.
Never with this board that I've been involved have I ever seen anything like that.
So things went sideways during COVID because the evaluation plans that year of 2020, everything stopped. The year after 2020, 2021 was also a year off, and then last year was another kind of awkward year. We sort of regrounded ourselves in it, but I think you should have. Before 2020, that information was being shared with the state. We were using a system called Ed Reflect that provided that information to us in an easy format, and we shared it. I think it had come to you in the past. I don't know. That was under a different superintendent, but
not in my memory of my years on the board, and it sounds like not in yours either.
No, and I've been like over 8 years, and I'm trying to think if there was some kind of a summary that was provided.
Yeah.
And I just don't remember ever getting that.
But regardless, it sounds like that's not the type of information we're going to be receiving moving forward, and we'll have to figure out, as part of the ongoing work that's happening, to develop that process, we'll figure out what the reporting mechanism looks like for the board.
Exactly. Yeah.
Great.
Which
Because
is,
there would be some mechanism, I mean, it
Yeah.
just seems to me that the board at
Yeah.
some point would need to have,
Our bylaws call for it.
right, yeah. and it'd be-
Yeah.
Getting
you would
feedback.
be
It's
knowledgeable
in our
on that.
policy. It's actually in our policy, and it was a surprise to me, because as long as I was even a recording secretary or a board member, I've never seen any, data.
Well, when was that? Just my memory.
Not just
of the certified or non-certified staff. So when it came up to us in a conversation, we were surprised and also wondered if that was available. Obviously, it's changed and it's not.
Right.
So thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is a nice segue to that. Eric pulled together our PDAC committee for the first time last week. Eric has done a very nice job, pulling not only certified members of the faculty, but representatives of the leadership team and paraprofessionals and others. So we're going to have a good look this year at both certified and classified evaluation systems. And Eric has laid out for that committee a very large task ahead of us this year, which is developing a new teacher and non-certified employee evaluation system. I was at that meeting. I very much appreciate the way Eric runs that, and in a kind and gentle way, let that committee know we have a lot of work ahead of us. So, we have the rest of this year to, take a look at some of the models and figure out what direction we're heading. And I know Eric's going to be keeping us posted. I'm on that committee, and I will certainly keep you posted too. So we're pointed in a good direction there.
Thanks.
And then the last thing I had, just that certainly right now as part of this whole process, all of the administrators are engaging the teachers in some goal-setting conferences, and I think I can say I'm very pleased with what I'm seeing out there. I think that we have some great teachers who are very well in tuned to what our curriculum is and how to use their assessments to monitor student growth and development, and we have a lot of goal-setting conferences that we largely expect to finish. Plan calls for them to be done by October 15th, but generally speaking, by the end of October is when we get most of them done, because scheduling that many meetings takes a big effort. That's all I have.
All right. Any questions for Charles about any of that?
Well, the enrollment report.
Oh, yes. Oh, my goodness, I skipped up. Yes, so I did include in your packet, this is the big one, the October 1st enrollment report. David asked for a comparison to last year, so that's down at the bottom there. So you see, last year's enrollment report was 1228. This year we're at 1214. And Dave, you also had asked for how many open choice students we have.
Yes, thank you.
So that's a pretty good snapshot of where we are in the district, both in terms of class sizes and enrollment. Pretty steady. I expect we'll likely pick up a few students, but you kind of see how the numbers have gone up and down, including, in January we were at 1219 and now we're at 1214. Pretty consistent. So.
I see the open choice at 63. Didn't we allocate 70 slots?
We did, yeah. We opened 70. We had 2 students that we thought were coming that did not. And we still have some seats open in kindergarten and first grade. And I'm thinking we might see those filled.
Okay.
Remind me with the timeline, because I know that with the open choice seats that a lot of times there's late shuffling.
Late shuffling.
And usually that's settled by when? By the end of October, or really throughout the year there can be movement?
We would like to see it settled by now, but I think our experience has been generally by the end of October.
Okay.
It's never great when folks are ever starting beyond the first few weeks of school. We have a lot of routines, transitions, norm setting that we do, so there's catch up to do. So it's not ideal, but it happens.
Okay. Thanks. Any other questions about that? Thanks for that additional information on there. It is helpful. I'm glad you asked for that, Dave. All right. If you're all set, Charles, then Dawn, we're going to move to our Director of Student Services report. Good evening.
My report's pretty short and sweet.
You'll notice that the census is not updated
For October 1, unlike the poll that we get from Power School that goes into PSIS, there's a lot of sorting and cleaning that takes place with special education numbers and EL numbers and things like that after October 1. So when you get your November report, it'll have everything accurate to what was submitted on October 1. The overall count is only up by 3 students as of right this moment, so it's not a tremendous change. Staffing updates, you heard at the last board meeting that Jillian McGinley, our speech language pathologist, resigned, and we are working to fill that position. We've interviewed subpar candidates, we've interviewed people that took other positions. Right now, in the last 2 weeks, 18 districts have posted on CT REAP having a need for at least one speech pathologist. So we're in good company with that. It's not a good boat to be in, but it is a boat that continues to circle the pond. We, speech language pathologists are really hard to find, and just like the high quality SLP that we just lost as she went to work at a hospital, they're in high demand, not just in education, but in the whole medical field. We continue to work with all of the sponsoring agencies that either provide contract services or what we call the headhunter agencies, that they'll get people from around the country to come to Connecticut, but unfortunately those wells are very dry. One of the things that we keep getting put forward to us is the idea of going virtual, of doing virtual services. Not unlike if you look at, for example, Psychology Today, that has it's a platform for people to access mental health services. The number of virtual providers versus in-person providers is significantly higher. So that's something that we may have to think about in the past. For some of our kids that may work. For other kids, we learned through COVID that that's not going to work, and we're going to have to continue to look at having somebody in person. We are lucky enough, Cheshire Fitness was able to provide us with an SLP that can come 1 day a week, and she was set up to be supporting students at the middle school, high school, and even that 1 day a week is not enough to service all of the kids at the middle school, high school, especially in absence of having that full-time person at Gildersleeve and Brownstone. So we continue to work towards staffing that position, and I'm talking to agencies I've never spoken to before, but we're hoping that things come along, and we'll figure out, even if we have to piecemeal it together with somebody from one agency to give us 2 days a week and somebody else to give us 2 days a week, we're committed to getting somebody in.
Dawn, can you tell us so in this interim period now where we're really understaffed and there are students presumably going without services that their IEPs call for, what does that mean for us as a district? Will those hours get made up eventually once we're staffed, or how are we meant to handle that?
Yeah, unfortunately, this is not our first go around with this lack of service, being able to provide this service. So that is one of the things that we do. If you remember last year at the beginning of the year, we heavily staffed. We overstaffed SLPs to get us caught up on some of those services. And we were making good headway getting caught up over the winter, and especially once Jillian joined us. But we've just taken 3 tremendous steps backwards. But yes, as a district, we have that responsibility to provide those services, whether it's made up informally or made up in form of a compensatory service. But you'll hear me speak later on when we talk about our continuing improvement plans, some of the things that we're looking at that as well, because I don't think this is a problem that's going to go away. It's going to long outlive me and all of us around here, is the staffing issues in these key areas. So some of it may be looking at how we provide services.
Yeah. Okay, and one more question just to follow on the virtual speech possibilities. Are you aware of other schools, other districts in Connecticut that have been exploring that, trying it out? Do you know whether other districts are finding success with it?
Some of my colleagues I've spoken to are finding success with our higher achieving students, or our students that are cognitively better prepared to work in a virtual platform. So all districts are toying with different ways to make this work. So it is working, but not in all cases. It's not a butcher block fix for what Portland needs, is to just engage with virtual, because we know some of those are not going to be able to do that. Sometimes the virtual is provided along with a person in the room with the student. So perhaps a paraeducator or somebody doing discrete trial instruction may bring the child to the screen and work in concert with the speech pathologist. So that kind of like some of the things we did when we were shut down for COVID, the child would have a set of manipulatives at home that the speech pathologist would have in front of them, and they could work that way. So it's not insurmountable, but it's a big change, and we really would have to look at that carefully.
Is there any chance of an SLPA? Have you been looking for that as well? Or
We have in Cheshire Fitness, for example, our current contractor that we use for OT and PT can provide us an SLPA. Unfortunately, they have to be supervised by an SLP. So while we still had fully staffed with just a little bit of need at the high school, middle school, that was the plan we were going to go. But that supervision right now would be lacking. So, but we even Cheshire Fitness hasn't given up. I know they're continuing to try. So. It's dismal right now, but I'm optimistic that we're going to come out with a stronger plan in the future. Any other questions about that? Alrighty, our transition program, we're continuing to build. We have our transition teacher. By the way, he will be presenting, I believe, at either the November or the December board meeting. He'll be our spotlight. But he will, Ted will be able to talk more about the specific job settings that he has, but he continues to build those. He's out beating the streets every day, talking with different people, involving different types of work experiences and recreational and professional experiences, or personal experiences in the community. I really appreciate our parents. We heard last meeting a parent talking about how she reached out to people on social media to find, to help give support leads in that area. So that's very helpful. We are developing a parent advisory board that will be meeting once a month. We're going to start tomorrow night with just a kickoff, a virtual meeting, and then from there we'll have an established monthly meeting to have kind of a PTA or PTO for the transition program. And several parents have said they would like to be involved in that. Any questions about transition? The toughest part about transition is still the transportation issue. And we are looking, there's all kinds of things that we're looking at. I know, for example, Charles is speaking with the drivers from the senior center that drive the senior center van to be able to have somebody. We have the vehicle, but we have some personnel issues around having drivers available for the vehicle. So, and I should be certified at any point now, as well as my administrative assistant, Olivia. So
I'm sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
Have we addressed the internet issues that were initially happening down in the room that the transition program is?
Yeah, there's drops in place now, and there's a phone in place. All of those structural issues have been addressed.
Okay, thank you.
The only thing we can't control is the sunshine down there, and that's something we'll continue to look at. So any other questions about the transition program?
I'm just wondering, is there a plan to continue to look out in the community for another location for them?
Yeah. That will be, by the time we come together to be building the budget for next year, we will have that all mapped out so that we have, because that's going to have to get built into the budget, that alternate site, the cost for an alternate site. But yeah, definitely, we're committed to having the kids out of the basement and out of school in general and have them in their standalone setting.
Tim, you had a question?
Well, I think I figured it out. I didn't know what the sunshine issue was, but apparently it's because they're all in a basement with no windows.
Yeah, the room that fit the needs the best for the program does not have windows. So that's the downfall. But even something as simple as we're looking at, incandescent lamps versus the strong fluorescent lights could be something just that could be more aesthetically helpful. But the other option is, as our transportation woes are fixed, the kids are going to be out in the community more. This program is never planned for them to be in that classroom for any extended period of time.
I'm just wondering I believe the timeline for the transportation fix is, we were anticipating kind of by the end of October that there would be drivers in place. Are we still on track for that, we think?
We are for a couple of drivers, but we have some personnel issues that we're addressing, so we have to we can't force people to drive the vans, so that's something. But now that Ted is married and back to us, he took a few days off to celebrate his wedding. He's set to go through the training as well as myself and Olivia. And then if we can incorporate some drivers from other places in the community, like I said, the senior van drivers that are looking to make a little extra, to earn a little extra money and help us out.
We also have some labor agreements that we're going to take up at next week's for personnel to talk about some of those, and I'm working this close to being done with them, but we'll definitely be on the agenda for an executive session for our next meeting.
And there's some apprehension amongst some staff members about taking on the responsibility of driving students. So that's also an area that's difficult. Originally there wasn't an issue or a question about, and now it's come up. So we want to make sure everybody's comfortable, confident, and competent in driving our students. It's just unfortunate that there's still such a transportation shortage across the state that there's no, if we could bring in a van from M&J for the day to do that, we would have done that on day one, but we just aren't able to do that right now. They just don't have the capacity. And Olivia is shaking the bushes every day with transportation companies to see if somebody's got a spare van or, a driver that they could send us and use our van or something like that. So, we good?
Yeah.
So Unified Sports is the next thing on my list. Unified Sports is set up and begun. The coaches have been identified at the secondary level. Mr. Cardona, our assistant principal and athletic director, has posted for students to begin signing up for Unified, both athletes and the typical student support athletes. So we're excited to see that happening. CIAC is doing a really nice job with making sure that there's activities every month for the kids that are involved in Unified Sports. So it is a year-round activity. It's not driven just by the sports season, so that's really exciting. We also are in the process of identifying interested coaches for the program at Gildersleeve and at Brownstone, and then we'll open that up to students as well. That's really not sponsored by CAAC. That's more of a in-house activity to engage physical activities and games and team building between students with special needs and their typical peers. So that more to come on that in the next meeting.
Dawn, you had mentioned, I think in previous years there was a budget for Unified Arts as well. Is that still true for this year?
It's not budgeted.
Okay.
No. It's been my dream since I got here to have a unified theater program, and we just have not had the interest either in not coaching but directing and leadership and like that. So it's not been budgeted for that reason. So if ever we had somebody that was interested in running it, I would go to Charles, as I do very well, and ask for money for it, because my previous district, we had a really robust unified theater program, and I know many of our kids would benefit. But it's finding, in this district, we're so small that so many staff members wear multiple hats, and I think that's just it. That's a big undertaking. So, all right. Any other questions about that? Our preschool numbers. I goofed last month when I presented to you. Remember, I was really concerned about our preschool numbers being so high in special identification and the kindergarten numbers being almost nil. It was like 3 students. It was really an issue with our Power School and CT SED systems talking. So the children that were in preschool last year that moved up to kindergarten were not identified as kindergartners when we pulled our data pool at the beginning of September. So we do have a much better spread. There's 20 students in preschool who have IEPs and 15 in kindergarten. So I slept a little bit better after we found that issue the next morning. I was anticipating us having to open up another preschool section in Jessica's office or something. So I'm glad to see that we're in a good place. And then the Portland Student Services Advisory Board, which is offered to parents, we are starting up again. Our first meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, October 18th. That notice will go out tomorrow. We'll be at 5 p.m. in the Media Center here. We like to meet monthly. All parents of students with special programming needs are invited to attend. So we're talking parents of students that might have IEPs, 504 plans, English language learners, all those parents are invited to be part of the advisory board. And we'll finalize the schedule for the rest of the year at that meeting. Okay.
And when did you say that was again?
It's on October 18th.
Any other questions for Dawn?
All set?
All right, thank
Great,
you so much,
thank you.
Dawn. All right, that brings us to new business. And the first item on the agenda is the review of the middle school, high school, student services, and curriculum school improvement plans.
Good evening, everyone. So I'll just, before I turn it over to Chuck, and we'll go through the 4 remaining plans. If you remember from our last meeting, I gave the board a pretty extensive overview orientation to the TACO framework. Remember, talent, academics, culture and climate, operations. You heard of our elementary schools improvement plans. You had a chance to preview those, and in the board packet this week, you have plans for our 4 remaining entities or sites, if you will, the middle school, the high school, our pupil services department, and my Department of Curriculum Instruction and Technology. So we're just going to go one at a time through those. We'll each come up, kind of go through some highlights of our plans, and then field any questions that the board may have. Sounds good. And we'll have Chuck up first with the middle school.
So I'm going to be very cautious. I just got to speak for 90 minutes at a conference, so I'm going to be very, very cognizant of airtime and make sure I'll be brief tonight in talking over the highlights of the middle school improvement plan. My favorite part of any school improvement planning process is the fact that these are living, breathing documents, and as a leadership, as our building leadership team, we are every month revising and going through and adjusting those practices. So what we have in front of you tonight was our original first draft. We're already on the development of draft 2 to kind of refine and increase our teacher voice in these practices. So not just based off the summer work, but based off teacher feedback, what they're seeing as improvement needs, and then what we're seeing at the start of our year. I'm not going to go through every category. You have it in front of you, and I'm excited. At the end, I'm happy to take questions on any elements, specifically the goals or the action items that you see in our school improvement plan. I'm going to focus on 2 areas tonight. One is I believe it's our second goal in the talent portion, and the other area I'll be focusing is the third goal in our culture and climate portion. So, goal 2 in our talent portion focuses on development of differentiated professional learning pathways that promote teacher autonomy and collaboration. So this year for professional development, making use of our 2-hour delays as an important time of continued professional learning for staff, we wanted to increase, and I saw from our feedback teachers gave last year on end-of-year surveys, they were really looking for more voice and autonomy in their professional learning and what was driving their practices. So to that end, we developed this year, I worked with the leadership team to develop and get feedback from teachers of what 3 pathways would be that teachers would be able to investigate and engage in kind of collaborative action teams or inquiry groups that they would meet with continuously as a professional learning community each month during those 2-hour delays to continue to learn about and expand their practices. Those areas, and you can even, I'll show you how these things are reading documents, are formative assessment, differentiation, and restorative practices. The data analysis, which is on what's one of your action items there, staff members really felt like it would be more beneficial to focus on differentiation as a key aspect of improvement and restorative practices, and they vied to shift some of those priorities. So just quickly showing how this is supposed to be focused on increasing teacher voice towards those professional learning goals. Each team is comprised of around 8 people right now that they all selected. They've engaged some readings and had their first inquiry group meeting at this past 2-hour delay last Wednesday. Our first group, the formative assessment group, presented yesterday at our faculty meeting some great new strategies that teachers can use to expand their practices. Each month at faculty meeting, one group will be presenting out. Our goal is, instead of focusing on everything, everyone focusing on everything and having lots of breadth, we have key individuals focusing clearly and deeply on learning a new topic that then we can share out with our staff, hopefully building to increase transfer for teachers and improve learning outcomes for kids. Shifting over to one of the action items from our goals from our climate area, our third goal, which is ensure clear expectations for student behavior. We really want to expand on the work that we did over the past 2 years with the school-based diversion initiative. We had a wonderful grant that I know Eric helped us acquire that we no longer have this year, but we were working with over the past 2 years, and it helped us focus on building what we call the graduated response to discipline, which were real clear expectations for students on what the behaviors we need to engage in school are, and expectations for teachers on how to best and with the level of least disruption intervene to address behaviors before they became disruptive. To that end, we really wanted to focus on improving our ability to not only talk to students about consequences and expectations, but really celebrate the good, celebrate the excellent behaviors that we have. When I was at our CAS dinner last year for our scholar leaders, a parent identified it would be really nice if we recognized some of our students who are doing so well more often, because we oftentimes are talking about the same few students who were struggling and have disruptions occur, where they or peers notice that in the classroom more often. So we're focusing on building kind of a PBIS, positive behavior intervention system this year, which includes, for the short term, kind of a token economy system where teachers, instead of giving verbal shout-outs, are actually giving students tickets when they recognize positive behavior. Students then can turn those in for different incentives, like having lunch in my office and watching Netflix, or playing or eating lunch outside at the picnic tables that we got through the grant last year, and finding ways that middle schoolers really want to be incentivized, because they're beyond the tchotchkes and the erasers and the pencils, but what are things that we could actually incentivize with? And we had students come help us develop some of those incentives. That's for the short term. For the long term, we're really looking to celebrate our excellence in both academics, attendance, and behavior. And we're developing what we're calling the tartan ticket system. Each quarter, we will recognize at the end of each quarter students that are recognized as high honors and have exemplary attendance and behavioral data. And we'll be doing that publicly throughout the whole grade, for the whole grade to see, to recognize those students. That will come with increased privileges because they've showed that they are trusted students in the building, such as an anytime hall pass or priority for when we are choosing flex assignments. Again, our focus is on really trying to celebrate the awesome, wonderful behaviors that our students present on a day-to-day basis, as opposed to just zeroing in on concerning behaviors that we need to change. Really having students see models and highlighting those models for what it means to be a Highlander at Portland Middle School. So those are just 2 actions on this plan. I'm happy to answer any questions about those or any other things from our school improvement plan.
I have a couple of questions, Chuck. One, at what point is this plan going to be the plan that's kind of the final draft that you use for the rest of the year?
So I'd say the goals are the final. The goals are the final goals, and the action items on there are written in very, very hard pencil. One of the things I always say with kind of at the start of a school year and anytime school improvement process is you want to have actions on the table by the end of November. Anything not on the table before then, you really don't have the inertia to really push forward as an initiative, just based off of what you need to do at the start of the year with getting people on the same page, grounding expectations. So my anticipation would be by winter, these are kind of finalized, and we focus more on what are the data points that we want to collect to show progress, and who are those areas of priority. Now, the majority of them are pretty set at this point. We're very happy with it. There are areas, and it's really just 1 or 2 bullets that we may adjust. You know, they're adjusting mostly for words and for like some types of actions. You know, we're at the beginning stage of the year to ensure that we have the capacity to meet the high, lofty benchmarks that we set. But I would say by the winter, we are pretty set with what we've done through the year.
And the reason I'm asking is because if we're getting a report out as a board on a regular rhythm, then it's nice to be able to track that we're looking at the same plan.
Yep.
At each of those.
So the pieces that will not change is you will notice, like, things that might change might include an action item here or there. The parts that won't change are those individuals responsible for different parts of the goal and those areas that we'll be looking at that show data for positive evidence of improvement in those areas. So again,
Chime in, sorry, not to interrupt. I don't know if I had intimated this at the last meeting. Our intent is to shift this entire time frame up. We would effectively like the board to be voting to approve goal and objective language ahead of the school year, such that we can start to engage faculty in ideation in the spring, so that by the time we get to the fall, we're finalizing plans that have already had discussions started around in the spring. Planning is continued over the summer. So whereas the board is hopefully taking action tonight to approve the goal language. We'd like to move that entire process up, and then it becomes a domino effect of moving the planning processes up from there.
Our key point in just in general school improvement planning is, as a principal, I never want to develop a school improvement plan without getting the clear feedback from teachers and because they're the boots on the ground, they're going to be making these actions happen. So I need to make sure that it would be a poor plan if I was the person responsible for each action. It would be unfeasible and not a good use of the talent that we have in our building. So getting their feedback, leveraging the leaders that we have in our building, and making sure that we can engage in those actions appropriately is what's really important.
I was just going to mention too that the goals being TACO and the objectives being that first column, those are done. Those aren't going to change.
Correct.
Those are the things we're hoping.
The action items are the only
The actions may be tweaked.
Hopefully we'll approve those tonight or at the next board meeting, pending this conversation. But I think what Chuck is saying is the action steps on how to achieve those are subject to evolve based on feedback or new and emerging programs or ideas.
Which is often the case when you're setting
Of
goals.
course,
Yeah,
absolutely.
that's what you'd expect.
Would you consider the program successful by now? Like, have you seen achievement and goals more so than you have in previous years?
Depends on which area you're talking about. The two I mentioned this evening, we just started with the differentiated learning pathways for teachers, and from the faculty meeting, it was probably one of the best faculty meeting presentations that I had, mostly because I wasn't running it. And it was delivered by really passionate people that you could tell deeply cared about the work they just investigated in. They shared different strategies. Eric actually was in attendance. They shifted in different rooms, practiced the strategy, and you could see a clear takeaway. In terms of the positive behavior intervention system, I've got a list of about 7 kids that have signed up for 7 groups of students that have signed up for the movie lunch, kids that are looking to sit around the building. We've clearly seen the positive incentives having an impact on kids. We've had a huge reduction, and again, this is just at the start of the year. Quarter one's always pretty light for behavior referrals, but we've had a huge reduction in behavior referrals from this time last year. I'm always cautious of that data because beginning of the year is always hard to make that assessment of, especially with cohort groups changing. But initial stuff looks good. A lot of this stuff I can't tell you if it's successful yet, but if you look, and I highlighted 2 that are more new, there's a lot in here that's continuation of the work we've done. Things like PLC, SRBI, restorative practices. Those things we've seen success with and we're continuing to refine them. Thank you for the question.
I have a question. You refer here to a Take 5 room?
Yes, sir.
And a de-escalation room. Is that the same thing?
That's the same thing, yes. We branded it the Take
terms?
5 room because at Portland Middle School we talk about safety, respect, responsibility, kindness, and presence, which is the one we kind of add that's not in most schools. And kids have made fun of me for saying, "Give me 5, please," often. So we just decided to own that branding and called it Take 5 room. We literally give students when they come in a timer, 5 minutes to relax. We have them engage in the restorative questions, either in writing or with a staff member that's there. Once they've reflected and they're able to go back to class and know how to go back in class effectively, they do so. Our goal isn't to keep kids out of class, it's to make sure they're calm and ready to go back and be successful once they return.
So this is a room that's staffed at all times?
We have a staff member that's on hall duty that when the room is needed, the staff member shifts from hall duty to the Take 5.
So they would move
And we give them a radio and they shift during that time.
from one role to the other, yeah.
Yep.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions for Chuck?
All right. Well, thank you all so much. I really appreciate
Thank
your
you
time.
so much, Chuck. Good evening.
Good evening.
The high school improvement plan was started to be developed really mid-year last year. And you're going to hear probably more about this from me than you ever want to know over the next 3 years. But we are participating in our NEASC accreditation process. NEASC is the driving body that accredits public schools, colleges, independent schools, and they have begun to branch their resources to elementary schools and district accreditation. That is the primary highlight of my plan to share with you this evening, because in its scope, it encompasses all of the different components of the work that we do at Portland High School. The other major part of the improvement plan that drives our work
would be in the academic goal, and that is aligning the instructional practices with our vision of the graduate. Again, the vision of the graduate and the NEASC accreditation process go hand in glove together, but actualizing the vision of the graduate and participating in the self-reflection study that I'm going to tell you a little bit about are really the drivers for not only this school improvement plan, but most likely the school improvement plans well into the future. NEASC asks us to take a very critical look in the mirror and see under 5 different standards with several foundational elements where we are. It includes surveying of staff, which we have already done. It will involve surveying of every student, which we will do, and it will involve surveying parents in our school community, with a goal of getting at least 25% of our parent population to respond to that survey for the results to be considered valid by NEASC. The process will begin this year. We've named a steering committee, and that committee is being chaired by Rob Jones and Mike Kenny, and they will lead our faculty, because it is a faculty-driven process, through the accreditation cycle, which has changed with the 2020 and 2023 standards. We will now have a collaborative visit with the commission, and that is scheduled for October 2024, so a year from now, where the commission will come in and look at our self-reflection study and validate or not validate our findings at our identified priorities areas for growth. They will then give us 2 years of marching orders, and then they will return in October of 2026. And that will be the accreditation visit. So as you look through my goal plan and you look at things like vision of the graduate, implementing equitable grading and assessment practices, and planning and supporting the NEASC self-reflection work, everything we really do is in service to that common goal of looking at all aspects of Portland High School through the lens of accreditation. I can happy to take any questions. NEASC could be a presentation all by itself. Yeah.
I'm sure it will be.
And it might be. Any questions about any of the action steps that you see before you?
Just a comment, actually, under the objective for culture and climate, increase teacher wellness and job satisfaction. I think it's really interesting, like exemplary to have the third bullet, ensure student behavioral expectations are addressed administratively in an effective and timely manner. I just appreciated saying that.
It's important.
Goes directly back to teacher wellness and job satisfaction.
It really does. It makes people feel heard and valued. And I think what, and I'm sure my administrative colleagues would agree with me, where we frequently fall down is closing the loop. We very frequently address the behavior, address it with the child, but we don't put the child and the teacher back together again. And that's definitely always been an area of growth and focus for administrative work.
What exactly is the end goal for the 3-year plan?
For the NEASC accreditation, the end goal is to be accredited. We want to maintain our accreditation that we've had since NEASC started accrediting. The last time was 2014. What that does is that certifies all of your transcripts. So when you're applying to college, it adds a degree of validity that you have graduated from an accredited college, high school, and colleges will look at that for admission. Yeah, not getting accredited would be bad.
It's not an option.
Not going to happen.
Are there any other questions for Kate? All right. Thank you. Kate, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I'm back again.
So one of the things I want to point out is this plan is really this is secondary to everything that my colleagues have said both 2 weeks ago and tonight, because everything that Student Services is doing should be in support of the continuing improvement plan at Valley View, Gildersleeve, Brownstone, middle school, high school. We're not a silo that just does our thing while supporting students. So it was really interesting when we were developing our rough drafts, because I sat as I listened to what was going on and what was coming from my colleagues as they presented their school plans. It was really neat to see the connections in my plan, but also there was areas that I added to or subtracted from because it was an area of importance to the building principles. So that's our first priority, like I said, is to support the building principles plan. My next steps with this draft is to present it to the department meetings. We meet once a month, every building. We have a student services meeting, and it's informational and it's instructional, and it's not just to sit around and talk about what kids are doing what, but it's really an opportunity to meet with our special education folks, English language learner instructors, and our related services people to go over what's going on in the world in the department at this time. So in our October meetings, we will go over this and I'll garner feedback from them. As just like Chuck had said earlier, the goals aren't changing and the objectives really aren't changing, because I think those are driven by our student data. But what could be revised, or I can take input from, are the action steps and the data to look at, because we've got a great set of really talented special education teachers and case managers that can bring this, that can help this plan grow even further. Two things that I just want to quickly draw your attention to. I've spoken about our prevalence rate of special education, and so there's the issue of what are we doing to make sure our SERBI systems are tight and our Tier 1 instruction continues to be tight. But then the other piece is also how are we identifying students and what are our steps through that. And secondary to that really is revisiting our model of student service delivery. And I'll use the example I was talking about earlier about the issue with not being able to have enough people to cover our speech and language services. And a case manager and a team will sit at a PPT meeting and they'll decide that, the student would benefit from a half hour of speech services. But the idea is, what does that look like? Because some things can only be done by a speech therapist. When I think in terms of like prompt training, where a speech therapist is trying to stimulate where the speech sounds come from and how the student moves their mouth and articulates and uses air, those are things I wouldn't expect anybody to really help with other than the speech therapist, because it's a highly qualified situation. But when we think about things like grammar and even articulation practice, there's things that we should be having the kids practice throughout their entire week. It should not be relegated just to a half hour with an SLP. So we're looking at how we're writing those IEPs. Do we still need that SLP in place to support? Most definitely. But there's areas where we want to make sure that carryover is being done by everybody. The paraeducator perhaps supporting, or even the classroom teacher working on those, making sure that they implement those goals in when they're, talking with the student. Are we working on speech speed? So teaching, our children to slow down, things like that. So that's a big area that I want the department to look at this year. And then, like I said, the other piece again is just our prevalence rate. But one of my most important things is we lose so many staff, and there's factors outside of our control. But the idea of making sure about the climate and the culture and the support for our special education teachers. We have a really large group of brand new teachers in special education this year. This is the make or break it couple of years for them. They either soar or they decide that it's more exciting to go, go work as an engineer somewhere, or go work as a building supervisor or something, because special education is tough. And we want more people than not to decide to stay in the field. So those are the two big focuses of mine. Any questions?
Just following on what you just said, I love the idea of the behavioral training support for staff, presumably, just to really bolster that retention and ensuring staff feel safe.
Yeah.
Is the transition program staff, their staff incorporated into this plan as well?
Oh yeah, they're Portland School employees, so they as a matter of fact, Ted actually attends the high school faculty meeting because he needs to have a faculty meeting to go to. I could sit with him once a month for an hour, but I'm kind of boring. But to go to the high school and meet with colleagues is really important for us. So he goes to the high school team meeting. The paraeducators are all part of the paraeducator pool, so they have the asynchronous training with Mari Wrightington. She's got the modules that she's developed, and then in addition, we have across the year we have 3 full para meetings where we discuss behavior and techniques and strategies and like that. So the transition program is fully part of that. Any other questions? Great, thank you.
Thank you, Donna.
Pass it on to Eric.
I swear I'm not going to read my whole plan.
We're going to hold you to that.
This is a stripped down plan, believe it or not. So I want to thank the leadership team for being critical of my first draft, which was much longer. So if you think this is a lot, you should have seen the original intent. I think an analogy, so humor me, I'm going to speak in an analogy. So this probably isn't a timely analogy because it's like 80 degrees out, but this is normally the time of year where you do like the summer clothes to winter clothes changeover, right? And I know that, like, historically in my house, what happens is we take all of our summer clothes and we dump them in Tupperware totes and we shove them in a closet, right? And then you haul those same clothes out in the spring or vice versa. You do it, summer to fall. And you keep hauling out clothes that you've kept for so long that you have not had any intention of wearing for a long, long time. Like, at some point they felt great, they fit great, then they stopped fitting great, but you didn't want to throw them away. And that analogy to me kind of sums up my plan. So there's a lot here about kind of hauling things out, getting rid of what's extraneous, strengthening through kind of a simpler approach what we have, and that may mean donating to a recycling bin somewhere. Some of what we've had for too long, and that's kind of we've lost our way with. So I'll give an example of that under our academic goal. So we talk about developing an assessment use model, right? We have a lot of assessments in place. We assess kids a ton. The purpose of assessment is to use that data to make impactful instructional decisions. We recently sat as a leadership team and debated our winter testing window with AimsWeb. And at the table, every principal said, we do not use that winter data. So why are we continuing to have a winter testing event, right? That's like holding on to a sweater that we haven't worn for years. At some point it was decided it was a good idea, but if it's no longer useful, we shouldn't hang on to it. So I think that idea of taking a simplified approach, and that doesn't mean having less integrity in what we do. I'm fond of the term simplexity, right? So any one of the initiatives that I've put here, the action steps, could be months and months of work and yield 30-page documents. That's not the intent. So I'm confident that although there's a lot here in this plan, they all represent manageable, attainable steps that'll help us to thin out the closet and know ourselves more. So I'll kind of speak to the talent goal. I don't know if that analogy worked, but thank you for humoring me. Our talent goal. So what do we know? Teachers are leaving our profession in record numbers. 30% of our students and families in this district identify as black or brown. 99.2% of our teachers identify as white. So there's a myth of Portland in general that Portland is not a diverse place. That's not true of our students and families in district. It may be true at face value of our educators. So what is our goal? Our goal is to recruit and retain a more diverse, high-quality teaching staff. Well, the way that we do that is we can't do that by celebrating at face value what we may appear to be, but we have to tap into the diversity that's resident within our existing faculty. So we're now positioned to do this with PowerSchool, to collect updated and more robust demographic data about our faculty. So while we can't say that the ways that our faculty identify in skin color matches the diversity of our students and families, we can start to tell the story of how many different countries were our faculty born in, or states, or how many different languages they speak, or what varying levels of educational degrees have they attained. And we can start to tell a story of diversity that makes us a more attractive destination for diverse educational candidates. So that's part of our recruitment effort. We can do things like brand ourselves better along lines of who we are. This is a beautiful example, thank you, Ms. Lawson, of how we do that. And also that when we go out to career fairs, we have an attractive display that makes people want to stop at your table. Because the reality is we're competing against other districts who have those things. So it's a little bit of financial investment to become more competitive, and that's how we get people in the door. By singing the great story of who we are, and by branding ourselves as an attractive destination for a high-quality teaching staff. So what do we do when people are here? Well, we have a lot of work to do to re-engineer what's called our evaluation and support plan. Just think about the order of those words. Evaluation, then support. That is out of whack. We want to develop a plan for teachers that offers support and growth, and positive evaluation is a consequence of efforts we make to support and grow teachers. Are there always instances where you have to say, you know what, this may not be a great fit for our district and this educator? Yes, but that's borne out over years that is the exception to the rule. We hire good people, we want to retain good people. So how do we do that? We do things by like offering voice and choice and professional learning, allowing teachers to pursue professional learning that matters most to them. That's articulated in my plan. I'm really thankful to the way that Chuck is pioneering that with his staff through personalized learning pathways. We had explained to the board that our whole impetus for improvement planning is what Charles refers to as site-based leadership, or a belief that those closest to the problem are those most capable of solving the problem, if you give them the space to learn and implement solutions. Right? So that's part of the way that we retain a great staff. And then, obviously, we want to always make this place better for our staff members. We respect our professionals deeply. Everything we do is in service to them so they can be in the best possible service to our students and families. We have been hauling out the same staff culture and climate survey for how many years? How many years has the Panorama survey been in effect? To really no useful effect. So we broke off from our relationship with Panorama, and we'll be using this year to home grow a survey. How will we determine the questions worth asking of our staff? We will ask our staff, and then we will ask those questions, and then we'll take in those results with an eye to improve that which our staff has told us matters most. Right? And by doing that, we ask hard questions of ourselves. We are a community dedicated to improving to those that we serve, and we empower those that work here with agency. So we have community, we have inquiry, we have agency, and if that sounds familiar, those are the pillars of our vision of the graduate. Those are the pillars of our district. As far as academics, we have a lot of work to do here. We are continuing, we are making incredible strides towards building this mastery-based system of teaching and learning. That work is happening inside Google folders. It's happening in curriculum release days. I was just at our social studies curriculum release day. The level of ownership that our teachers are taking and the clarity of the documents that they're producing to create an ever-improving curriculum is really, really inspiring. As that will manifest over the next couple of years in a mastery-based system of teaching and learning, that the outcome of that is a report card that our families actually understand and that means something and that clearly delineates where their child's performance is across measurable skills written in student and family-friendly language. That is what we are moving towards. The work is there. I invite the Board of Ed to peek into that. Like I've said, if you ever have an hour or 10 on your hands, I can do either version. I can do an hour, I can do a half hour, I can do 10 hours. Come and sit with me and let me explain to you what that system looks like and show you the work that's being done, rather than just tell you, like, it's going great. It really is going great, but I'm happy to show you how great it's going. Our K-3 literacy curriculum, that is a huge push. We will, in very short order and in very clear terms, publicly be making K-3 literacy our foremost priority in this district. 100% of our students must be reading on grade level by the end of third grade. We do not currently have a core curriculum that we feel can deliver us to that goal. We are in the process of transitioning to a new curriculum. More to come on that in my next board report. There's been some exciting developments that we really feel can get us there. This year we are engaging teachers in capacity around what is the science of reading and why is it a better approach than whole language, which has dominated literacy instruction, what our K-3 teachers have been trained on, so that when we put a program in place, they understand the why behind the program. They value the program and they teach it with more effectiveness because they have a core understanding of what lies behind it. Our culture and climate. We're doing a lot of equity work in the district. We have our coalition, we have our school-based equity leadership teams. The key this year is to bring that work together. And we are 99.2% white. Equity means increasing access and opportunity for marginalized communities, marginalized individuals, marginalized identities. We can't be guessing at that work as white people trying to do good for others. So we have to elevate student and family voice and listen and take on their suggestions through the equity work that we're doing. That's a key action step for our district equity coalition this year. And to really continue to advance and grow into the commitments that we have set forth, and that really important equity statement that the board has approved. But having a statement is not enough. How are we continually showing over time that we're living into that statement? And a key this year, again, is increasing agency from our students and families to be voices for change in our district. They are our end users. They are the ones that we serve. And again, revising to strengthen the surveys that we send out to our students and families annually so that we get back from those surveys useful data rather than just recycling the same old sweater, if you will, year after year.
Eric, can I ask a quick question there?
Sure.
So I think I saw earlier that the PDEC committee is going to be working on revising the survey for faculty. Who will be working on revising the survey for students and families?
That work will primarily be coming out of our district equity coalition.
Okay, gotcha.
So where we say, like, we want to give our students and families an opportunity to tell their stories, that's both the stories they bring into our community, right, or they bring into our school district, they carry with them through our front doors, and also the experiences that they hold within our buildings, within our schools. And our survey has to elicit those experiences. Even though sometimes we may not hear what we want to hear, the key to improvement lies in being uncomfortable, right, and tackling hard truths. In operations, we've got a lot of work to do around strengthening cybersecurity practices. Again, thank you to the board for increasing our staffing in our IT department. We're going to be doing things like putting in place multi-factor authentication so no one can check an email without getting a verification code on their phone, which is a dramatic improvement that will protect data and privacy across our district. We're already making enhancements to our network around privacy and security. I put here, again, the board has done an exceptional job making sure that the town honors their commitment to instructional technology. That work does not stop, so it's staying true to that replenishment cycle that we've put into place, and also doing the hard work of auditing existing technologies in the district to make sure that we're maximizing our expenditures in terms of use and impact, and where we're not, making some hard decisions to eliminate or reduce softwares and hardwares. And then obviously our Power School is a major lift, one that's been successful thus far, but as I said to the board previously, we're just out of the car dealership with the new Lamborghini, and we're driving at about 20 miles an hour, which is fine for now, but we steadily want to increase our confidence with that supercar that is Power School. And that's what we'll continue to do over the course of the year. Any questions from the board?
Is there a rollout of Power School to families this week?
So we had scheduled a parent portal night for October 5th. In actuality, we are finding that parent portal is less of a lift for families than we anticipated, so I haven't told him yet. I will be working with one of our teachers, I won't name him in public forum, to produce a very easy to follow family video for how to sign into parent portal, basic features in parent portal that are available now. We just felt like there wasn't enough bang there to have a family community event night. It would have been a little bit lacking. Yeah. We may try to partner parent portal opportunities with other existing family nights on our school calendars. if in case like anyone's struggling to get on, we'll have a station. Have you logged on to the parent portal versus a standalone thing?
A video is a great idea. I think you'll reach more people that way anyways than with a one-time.
And we have precedent. The registration video that this teacher produced, if he's listening, has really had a positive impact on our kindergarten registrations. We had very few end user errors because of the quality and the clarity of that video.
That's great.
Yeah. One other question. Under your culture and climate goal, increase opportunities for students and families to lend their voices. Do you have any sense of what examples of those might look like?
That's what the District Equity Coalition has to figure out. So I have attended events in other districts like Come Tell Your Story Night. We have tried somewhat unsuccessfully to get students to come to our District Equity Coalition. It's 4 to 6 p.m. So potentially student representation on our school-based equity leadership teams would be another option, but we want to get that ideation from the coalition and then also put those questions out to students. How can we get you to tell your stories or your experiences more effectively? What can we do to give you more of a voice? And start to gather ideas from our end users, because again, those closest to problems or perceived problems usually have the best solutions.
When you're talking about the talent, the recruitment and development, some of the action steps, where did that come from? Did that come from like maybe exit interviews, or where are you getting where you think there's a void that the teachers need to be filled?
Yes. Can you just clarify in terms of our educator diversity?
No, you want to have them give them more opportunities for professional development, things of that nature. Was that brought out as a...
So we do ask for feedback after professional development events, and we kind of get that like, well, this was good, I could have used the time more effectively to do something that was more meaningful. Our teachers are always clamoring for like, just give me time and let me do the learning that's most important. The research proves that like teacher-elected professional learning is often received and implemented more effectively than district-prescribed. And we did get some of that feedback from our panorama surveys. It's not to say that those surveys were entirely useless, but the idea of like, if you're continuing to ask the same questions over and over each year, for the end user, it's like, why are you asking me this again? I already answered it last year. Have things dramatically improved? So they've been clamoring for better surveys.
You also have a thought that our schools, because the size is probably just a starting point for a certain percentage of teachers, and no matter what you give them, they're actually, this is relevant to that, they're probably doing a good job, a great job, so they got that foundation to market themselves to that next step.
So that's part of, one of the things that Charles has done that has not always been done is to put in an exit interview process. So when people are leaving our district, we can learn from them, what's your reason for leaving? Now, if someone's reason for leaving is, hey, you grew me into the type of educator that I could go, pursue an opportunity elsewhere. Sometimes that's a lateral move. The reality is there's a lot of incentive to make a lateral move. Sometimes it's financial, sometimes it's closer to home, sometimes it's just change for the sake of change, which people want. We feel very good. We're always prepared to lose good people if we've helped them become better and chase their dreams, right? What we don't want to hear is, I'm leaving this district because I'm unsatisfied because you're not giving me the opportunity or the choice or the voice that I deserve. So there's no blanket answer to that, but I will say, we have a lot of career educators in Portland that don't leave, and there's a lot of reasons. Portland is a very nice place to work. Our kids are amazing. Our leadership team is incredibly supportive. But I think we need to tap into kind of all ends of that continuum of satisfaction.
Any other questions? No? Okay, thank you so much, Eric.
And I'll just say, if anyone wants old sweaters, I've got bags.
So, we've reviewed
Got them all.
all of them. We've reviewed all 7 of the school and department improvement plans. continuous improvement plans, as well as the kind of overview of district improvement plan. And if folks are comfortable with where we're at tonight, we could have, take a motion to approve these. And if folks need more time, we can consider that as well. But I would put it out there that if anyone's wanting to make a motion, we can move forward on this.
I'll make a motion to approve the continuous improvement plans for each department and schools.
A second. Thanks. Is there any further discussion? I keep looking over here to see if Meg or Stacy want to chime in. I want to make sure we can hear them. Okay.
Hi, I've been listening very carefully. The amount of work that's gone into these is incredible, and I think it's a good beginning, and I know that it'll be refined and we'll learn a lot from all of the initiatives that are in all of these plans, so I heartily express my awesome pleasure to, I can't even talk right now, I'm so sick. Anyway, yes, I support these wholeheartedly, thank you.
Did I just see that Stacy can't unmute?
I do
got
that.
it. Okay. There we go.
I'm in agreement.
I'm sorry, can I just ask a clarifying question, and I could be wrong here? So, we presented the plans to the Board of Education. Was I under the misunderstanding that the board was voting to approve the goals of the TACO framework, not the individual school plans as presented? I wasn't sure, because I didn't know that we were presenting the plans for.
I think you're correct.
My understanding, actually, from my conversation with Charles, is that you were asking us to approve the entire thing. Is that true?
Yeah, I think that what I'd like to see us in this, how we amend the motions, you're approving both the TACO framework and the goals and objectives presented in the past two meetings.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the TACO framework and the goals and objectives as presented over the past few weeks.
Just for discussion, Eric looks sad. In my mind, I'm thinking that because part of the discussion was that, there are elements of this that will remain the same, and there's elements within that are not going to remain the same. And so if we're voting to improve and cast in stone this entire thing,
Exactly.
Is that really what we want to do, and not provide flexibility for them to, on the fly, address these changes as they come up?
That's a good point. My thinking on that, though, is that in any year when we, including in our former goal model, we would approve a series of goals, objectives, action items, and my expectation with a good set of goals is that the action items are always going to shift to be responsive to changing needs, and some of them stay the same and some of them might need tweaking. I don't know that that's any different here. The objectives and the goals stay the same.
Yeah, if I was to connect this to the previous board goals and initiatives, I guess I would draw a correlation to the goals are goals, right? That's consistent. The initiatives are the objectives. The action steps, I guess, Laurel, to your point, that's not what we're voting in stone. We're voting, or you're voting rather, to approve the goals and the related objectives with the understanding that action steps are fluid. Not all action steps may be attained. These are aspirational plans.
Yeah.
Wrinkles come up.
But they understand.
Correct.
Okay.
I think, yeah. Can I actually, before you walk away, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Just to clarify for myself, you referenced earlier, Eric, that you imagine this process would start in the spring for the following year. So we're on the late side because we were kind of shifting our model. Typically, we're accustomed to the goal setting happening over the summer after your administrative team works together and the board has a retreat together. But you're suggesting that starting this year with this model, we'd be shifting that up much further?
I guess my thought there is, it's been my experience here that we set, under Charles's leadership, aspirational goals. So we have not actually seen a lot of shifting in the goal language from year to year, right? So it's not to say we're just rubber stamping the goals every year, but even as you read the goal language that you're voting to approve tonight, we could see those goals standing for a long time, right? That is not work that I could see being done or accomplished in the near term. The objectives, I think change, is that still the objective related to the goal? I guess my thought is, our experience this summer was, we sat down and developed improvement plans that when they made it to our faculty already seemed done. And then it was, the messaging was, these aren't done. There's room, tear them apart, right? Our hope is that if we were to shift it forward up to the spring, we could say, here are our goals and objectives that you've contributed to. We've evaluated the objectives that we worked in service to last year. Give them input at the objective level. In the spring, present the goals and objectives to the board for approval, and then have the summer and fall to action plan. So rather than trying to develop the entire action plan and present it to the board in the fall for approval in October or November or maybe even December, that we're just really at that point focused on the action step planning with our faculty and refining that over, let's say, the first month of school.
I'll tell you what, let's go down that rabbit hole at another time.
All right.
Only because what Eric's talking about makes sense, but what we have to do is line it up with the board bylaws and that call for board goal setting, which is, this is sort of moving in. And that timeline is set out as something that starts in the fall. So if we're going to match that, we may need to get back to policy and take a look at the bylaws. But that's more of a how we get there. I think that I'm comfortable with this shift for now. We're still on our board timeline for goal adoption. And then, as we cruise into the spring and this timeline makes sense, which it does, right? Because we can do more planning when we have the vision set in the spring over the summer, which is a very important time for our leadership team to get together and have our retreats and our training and line up our PD calendars. I just don't want to get ahead of those things that the board is required to do as a function of bylaw.
Yeah, and just from a functionality standpoint, I think the board's moving in the direction of approval. If the board decided tonight we are not approving the goals and objectives as written, we would be on October 3rd back to square one of the improvement plan, right? So a lot of work has happened to get us to this point in action steps pertaining to goals and objectives that are being examined and voted for approval tonight.
Okay. Thanks for the clarification. So we've had a motion, it's been seconded, it was amended, tweaked, and is there any more discussion about the TACO framework or the continuous improvement plans? No? Then let's move the question. All in favor?
Well, could we
sorry.
just restate
Yes.
the motion?
Absolutely.
As it stands presently?
Yes.
So the amended motion I'm making is to approve the new TACO framework and the goals and objectives that have been presented to the board over the past few weeks.
All right. All right, all in favor? Aye. And do we hear from Megan Stacy? Just making sure. Okay, fabulous. Okay, thank you. That's great to check that off. All right. That takes us to our discussion of the Great Blue Survey. Do you want to go ahead and talk about that a little bit, Charles?
Just that, and Lola, you know as much as I do. So, the Board of Selectmen, this is a Board of Selectmen endeavor. Right? They are paying for this, and they approved this at the Board of Selectmen level. And Ryan very graciously invited Laurel and I to join him in some discussions with some Board of Selectmen members, and his name was Michael from Great Blue. And he took a lot of notes. Clearly, he read our facility study committee. As I read this draft that you have in front of you, I see the language directly from the facility study report. I know that because I wrote it, and I see my writing there. So I think what he's done is he has packaged the facility study report in a way that informs people before just sort of saying, hey, do you strongly agree or disagree with this? There's an educational component to it. So Ryan shared this with me. Great Blue shared it with him Friday, and he asked for our board's input. Right? So I said, would you like me to share this with the board? He said, yes, I would love it if you would do that, and if anybody on our board has input into the design of the survey, he would love to take that input, consider it, share it with Michael and Great Blue. But otherwise, this is happening quick, right? I know that Great Blue said that they would get this out sometime around the middle or end of October, right?
I think the goal is before, hopefully by the end of the month.
Right, and what would happen is this would go to everybody, literally in everybody's mailbox on a postcard with a QR code. We'd be putting the QR code in our social media and Friday emails, and the entire town will be invited to provide feedback.
Yeah. And just as a, I think you mentioned in the email, but as a reminder, this is a first draft. The committee that was, or the group that was working on this hasn't had a chance. I believe Ryan's trying to get us together at some point this week to make some edits and provide some feedback to Michael. So to absolutely know that there are some mistakes and typos that need to be cleaned up. But I think looking for general feedback on what you think.
So my first question would be, if it's a QR code, this is pretty intensive language.
Yeah.
I can't read small stuff on my phone. How am I going to read something this large and do a survey and click buttons and add comments and circle things? I guess I don't think they're circle. Obviously they're not, because you're doing it on a phone. You're not going to do that. So I'm a little bit leery of that.
That's the target for this, is that people would do this on their phones?
I mean, I think it's accessible with a QR code, and there should be a link that will go out, I imagine, in emails as well. So I don't know why you wouldn't be able to open it on,
Okay. I got
on a
the
laptop.
impression it was a QR code going to everybody.
I think there'll be QR codes on the postcards, but my understanding is that we would have a version that we could send out in the weekly emails that go out to district, through the district, from the principals, that there should be a link that would go on the town website, on the school website. So I imagine those, you'd just be able to click and open.
So that raises a second question. If it's a kind of a generic, because I was thinking it was going to go to everybody's house, you're going to open up, you're going to have, like we at work have a survey unique to me, and only get my response, even though it's anonymous.
Yeah.
If you're doing it generic to everybody, what's prevent somebody from doing 10 of them?
So we talked about that, and originally they proposed that they could put a limit on the number of times you could access that QR code. But what we talked about was that if you place a limit on that, it means that you can't put it out in a really public way on social media and through emails to the school community. You kind of lose out on those other ways to access people. And I know it says it takes 5 to 7 minutes. I didn't try and take the survey personally. I imagine that's like a 15 to 20
5 to 7 minutes to realize it'll take a half an hour.
to read it, right? So I think that what is kind of self-limiting is what we discussed. That you have to really be gung-ho committed to want to take this survey multiple times.
To stuff the ballot box on this would be a major commitment.
It would be a huge commitment, but I think that the trade-off, if you get one person or two people who submit a couple of times, the trade-off is that versus being able to really go full speed ahead trying to access a broad cross-section of the community. And it seemed like access needed to be the priority.
I'll be interested in the result, but I'm not going to be a naysayer, but I'm going to say that's going to have a very low response rate given the complexity that this is being done.
Yeah, that was my thought as well. You're not going to see, you only see real hardcore committed people who are out of the gate opposed to spending any money, or people who are really on board, gung-ho to spend plenty of money.
Yeah, I do a survey, got 5 questions, I'm like, okay, boom, 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 I'm done. Then it says next, takes you to another page, and it says next. And I said, all right, I'm done. Let's get off of it, I'm done.
I just want to weigh in on the fact that I thought it was casting a wider net for more information that would be more valuable to the town than to the facility study of the schools. But I also had a concern about the QR code and not having additional information to go to a link on a computer screen. And saying that, I know we offered the school computers to parents in the past for the survey that was done in the spring and fall. The school surveys, and I'm also concerned that perhaps the town has really got to put out information in River East and social media and the website to make this available to anybody that wants it, if they, advertise it correctly. My question is, how many people do we need to respond in order to make this valuable? Do we know? Do we have a number?
So Michael did talk to us about the statistics behind it and what a reasonable sample size would be. And what I heard from him, Laurel, correct me if I'm wrong, is that they're going to keep going until they get the sample size, that they need to determine some statistical significance to the findings. But this is what they do. This isn't cheap. This is a professional research firm, and Michael and his colleague, whose name is eluding me right now, impressed on us that this is what they do. They know how to get the type of data that they've found successful in other towns or other endeavors in terms of informing policy and decision makers. Would that be fair to say?
I think so. I mean, because I think the concern that you, Dave and Tim both expressed about numbers of responses and the fact that it's really long, and it's a big ask to ask people to take the time to do that. We expressed those similar concerns when they said this was going to be a big, long survey. And what they said is that their experience in other communities doing very similar types of surveys is that because it's not coming, sometimes you get national political surveys that get sent to you, that kind of thing that like you don't want to invest 15 minutes of your life in that. You get a couple pages in and you're done because you're not directly connected to that. They were saying that because this is coming from within our community, it's coming from the town, that there's already a little bit of a relationship there with our community members, and so their experience is that people are more willing to invest 15 minutes in this kind of a survey.
Yeah, and I think it might be important that when we send it out to say that, like this is really important for us. We need, please, this is your kid's education, this is your town, this is the future of Portland. Can you give us 25 minutes and some dedicated attention, please? I mean, I think that's part of what we need to do. Like as we ask folks for their time, impress upon about the importance of it. And I think we can do that. Certainly on the school side, I have no doubt, knowing how engaged our parents are and our teachers who live in town are, that they're gonna take the time to do it right. Now, of course, the goal is a wider net. Like how do we get? I think that's what we've heard from the Board of Selectmen and others is those people who aren't closest to this and aware that it's happening. I mean, even one of the questions in here is, did you know that this report had happened, right? I mean, if nothing else, I think that this is another opportunity to raise awareness about this so, we can forestall, hey, I didn't know this was happening. What am I voting on? Kind of thing. Like it's an education. It's an additional opportunity to market it while also getting feedback.
Or are you going to get?
I was skeptical. Yeah, I was skeptical of the survey when they offered it. I thought we were going to take 3 steps backward and start again at the beginning of the whole thing. But I was impressed with what I read. And again, the net is widely cast, so there's information that will benefit the town in the future as well. So I would support it.
Yeah, I like the questions overall. I agree with that. It's just that some of them, I'm probably too close to the whole process.
That's fair.
But I would say, okay, on page 4, where it says if you're not aware of that survey, you stop right there. Right. How many people are going to say, oh, let me go read more? I don't know how many people are going to. And so the people that are aware of it are going to continue on. People that are not aware of it will say, yeah, I know anything about it. Why do I want to fill the survey out? Just my 2 cents. Yeah. And another thought.
So wait, say that one more time so I make sure I understand. You're concerned that the wording, was it question 11?
Well, it says prior to today's survey,
were you
aware at the beginning you said there was a facility study committee, and if it says no, I'm not aware at all, some people may just say, okay, why go on? Because the questions are about something I have no knowledge of.
So maybe, and that's a great concern, we can ask them about that when we meet, and maybe there's a way they can rephrase that so that there's, so that they, I don't know, so folks can understand.
Somebody at that question and say, please go to our website and blah, 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 here's where the information is to learn all about it.
Okay.
Maybe they can put in parentheses next to that, don't give up.
Don't give up.
Please
don't go.
Please don't stop.
So is this wording going to turn off people who don't already know about it? Going to shut down?
My other thought was, if we're mailing this out, are we going to put the school and the Board of Selectmen symbols on the mailing and not blue sky, whatever, great blue? Because if I get something from great blue, if it has Portland symbol on the front and Board of Selectmen symbol on the front, I know it's an official mail-in.
So how?
Well, I thought it wasn't. So it is going to be mailed out to people.
Postcard.
Just the post. So they're going to just get a postcard that requires them to scan it. To access it.
So how will the postcard design let people know that this is
safe.
coming from the town and that it's safe?
Safe, because you get stuff in the mail.
Sure.
Scan this. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So my initial reactions, I think the questions on the first few pages are great, asking about the characteristics that people feel are important about the school community. I think for me, I'm concerned about the wording of the key findings, and the wording about it is how strongly you agree or disagree with each, but they're facts.
So I have the same feeling, Kim.
And they're facts that either you can't debate, or you're leading the leader to a biased response.
Yeah.
Obviously, I agree.
What number are you looking at there?
Yeah, so it's page 1, 2, 3, 4, and that bottom grid. It's really the top two key findings that I take issue with.
Yes.
That do you agree or disagree that the school needs 17 million in infrastructure and 30 million in infrastructure improvements over 8 to 10 years? It's not an agree or disagree question. I'm with you.
That may be part of their method is to, that may be me, because I would think they would know, because I saw that first thing too. It's like, well, it's not really, but I guess it tells you how, as a person doing the survey, where are you? And if you're saying, well, I don't agree with that, well, it's a fact.
Right.
But
you don't have to like it, but.
Right.
Well, we can bring that to it, but
but I think
it's on my list to ask about.
Yeah, could that be a way to sort of filter down the results? I mean, if somebody's going to say, no, the schools don't need that money, well.
Yeah, that tells you something about that survey taker.
Exactly.
Where their head's at and where it might.
Your head is buried in the sand, and you're an
I wouldn't go there.
Let's consider you in that context. It's interesting, but that's a good point. I hadn't thought of that. But I think we can bring that back to.
It's definitely on my list of questions.
And then on the top of page 5, my concern is kind of the opposite, that those are not facts, those are opinions that I think are very biased and leading.
Which one's
sixth grade?
Top of page 5, where 6th grade may thrive better. You know, it's kind of that,
Oh.
chocolate ice cream is the best ice cream.
Yeah, I've read a lot of these just weighted towards trying to solicit a particular response. It's like, well, who's going to say? Well, of course you want kids to have a great environment. But I don't know that that's really what they're trying to establish there. But anyway, that's a good. Those are some of the questions I was concerned with too.
I just feel like they're leading in bias.
Well, they do. They seem to be. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, the wording. Your specific concern is with the wording on all 3 of them, or on the first. Because the first one, you're talking about the 3 that are about the 6th grade specifically.
Yeah.
I see your point with the wording on the first of the 3. The second and the third about building capacity or building space feel a little bit different and maybe less leading, but
And I don't have an answer for how to change those.
Right.
Less leading, but they just have that.
We can certainly ask Michael that. I mean,
Yeah.
I would be interested to hear how he constructed that question, whether the leading nature of it, or whether, to Tim's point, maybe that's part of the sort of schematics, the
science.
Behind the scenes.
The other sense I got is they're trying to solve everything. Because
Oh,
you've already
yeah.
talked about that kindergarten, 6th grade, we can switch it if we need to, kind of in our back pocket. They're trying to fit every kind of scenario in here to get a feel on everything, and I think it's just maybe too much.
Too much.
Well, I think it could also help with, what I would call a marketing campaign. Once you get the surveys and you say, all right, well, this is what it tells us, and it also tells us all this knowledge about where people's heads are, and if we want to move this forward, where are the magic buttons? Where do we need to push to elicit the outcome?
Or where are the landmines?
Where are the well, yes,
Right.
exactly, too.
Right.
I think one concern I have with the 3 scenarios is we're still, and maybe Great Blue had a response to this, we're still in the place of people not knowing what the decommissioned properties would become of when they're answering the question. And yeah, they give input on whether they want it to be public or private use and open-ended, what that might look like. But I just have some concern around people kind of like voting with their gut without having all the facts, which they would have at the time of the referendum.
Yeah. And you know what? When you're reminding me, Sarah, you're reminding me, Sarah, that when we had this conversation with Michael, to that particular point, he was talking about some language in the questions to kind of preface it by saying, if there was a plan in place for what to do with the decommissioned Gildersleeve, would you support blah, 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 blah,
I don't
blah,
think that made it in
I don't
there.
think it made it in there, and I'm glad you said it, because I think that, he said that multiple
Sure
times.
did, yeah. Well, and we said it too.
And we said it too.
We were,
Yeah.
because I think what we were saying is, the history of Portland would lead a lot of people to be concerned about another boarded up school for 20 years.
exactly.
And that,
We want to,
you know,
And we discussed that, we wouldn't want to put forward necessarily specific proposals or ideas about what might happen with the facilities, but to just kind of take that out of the equation with that, the way they worded that question. So it seems like they should be able to address that.
yeah. Question 45, I thought was confusing. I'm not quite sure what it's asking, so that the group may go back and wordsmith that one.
I marked that one too.
Okay.
Yeah.
To Tim's point, question 45, it just sounds crazy. When you're saying it out loud, that's a lot of.
I don't know what they're asking.
Yeah, it's a lot of questions.
They're saying, I believe what they're saying is, the way I read it is, okay, so the
Are you
previous
gonna vote?
question, they asked, are you going to vote in the 2024 election? I think that question is, if you're going to vote in the 2024 election, would you vote, would you be answering the referendum question? Right? Are you not going to skip
I think
it?
they're asking you to predict whether there will be a referendum question there.
See, this is what I'm
The way
saying.
would
I
do
think
There are two different
Yeah.
interpretations right here.
I think
How
that's what
likely
they're
is it
trying
that
to
that
get
vote
at.
will include vote on the referendum
Yeah,
So I
it's
need to
worded,
clarify.
it's not
versus
clear.
that you will make a vote
Right.
on the referendum.
Which I think is maybe what they're trying to ask, but it needs to be clarified.
good feedback.
Yeah, no, I only read it one way. Now I can see the two sides to that coin.
Well, I just made a note. Question 45 sounds crazy. We can revisit that one.
Yeah, let's not pull any punches.
And then we had the last one where, how would you prefer to hear more about this TV? Yeah, we need to take out some TV ads.
Yeah. Probably remove that option, huh?
Well, this is
I'm sure that's a standard format.
I might go streaming. I mean, we could make videos and things. I don't know that we
Yeah.
go into TNH and asking them for a 30-second spot or anything.
Question 3 refers to what school kids attend, assuming you don't move to a different part of town, which is irrelevant for Portland.
Yeah, I saw that as well. I also had a couple of questions just about, the places where it says no terminate under, if you're not currently 18 years old, if you're not a property owner in town, and you're not registered to vote, if both of those things are true, they terminate the survey there. And I guess I have some questions for them about why we wouldn't want to allow as many people as possible to answer the question.
Well, if
Which question is that?
It's at the very beginning, the intro questions and screener.
If you're not registered and eligible to vote, then we don't
Right,
care about your
well-
Right, but that doesn't sit
The
well.
screener would eliminate people who live in apartments who don't own cars and use public transportation.
Right, who might have children in the school system,
Right.
or not, and our community members.
Well, maybe, are you eligible to vote in the town of Portland? Because ultimately, we are trying to get a sense of what kind of voter support exists for a referendum, right?
If you live in Portland, even if you don't own a car and you rent, you are still an eligible voter.
So I want to be clear, I don't have a problem with gathering the information and having that as part of the data at the end when that's presented to us, to know, we'd be able to see which answers are from folks who are registered to vote and which aren't. I have an issue with terminating somebody's ability to complete the survey. If they want to complete the survey, I think they ought to be able to.
Yeah, you can complete the survey, just exclude it from the sample.
Maybe there's a different way to qualify people besides their age and whether they're property or property owners.
Yeah, that's the question I have for Michael, for sure.
Also, are these required, or are these all optional, or are certain questions required?
My understanding is that they're all tweakable by.
No, you mean like when you're taking the survey, you can't skip a question.
Oh, about skipping. That's a good
Well, there's some you
question.
can say,
Can you skip around?
if you can say no, or you prefer not to say, but not the key ones though. Well,
You know what? I have a vague memory of him talking in our very first meeting about partial surveys, partially completed surveys, and we would have to make the decision about whether we would want to include partial survey data as part of the larger set. So it'd be good to get clarification around that.
Yep, great.
All right. Well, we're not looking to take any action on this tonight. We were really just looking for feedback. So, feel free to take a second look if you want, and if you have additional thoughts or edits or questions, you can send them to Charles and myself, and I hope we're going to be meeting with Ryan and the Board of Selectmen representatives and the Great Blue folks at some point within the next week to look at that. So feel free to send more thoughts. Is there anything else tonight, or are you ready to move on? Take that as we're ready to move on. All right. That takes us to old business.
Well, can I just
Yes.
remind, so it's 9 o'clock.
Oh, yeah, thanks for
Yeah,
checking
you know,
that.
at 9 o'clock, you're allowed, certain, if you want to stay, you're welcome to, but we want you to get 8 hours of sleep and do your homework. So if you need to leave, you can do that too. Okay?
All right.
And that goes for your guys.
Thanks for mentioning that. All right, so we're going to move to old business, and the only item under old business tonight is the CAPE Leadership Award. We spoke about this last meeting, and I sent out the application to you all with the checklist of criteria that I was able to check off that our board demonstrates. And I think at this point we're ready to move forward if someone's willing to make a motion.
I will make a motion to accept the CAPE Board Recognition Awards document that Laurel has provided with all of the addendums to the original sheet. I think it's an amazing document, and I think we're well deserved to be recognized.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thanks, Sarah. Is there discussion on this?
Yeah, I have some. I mean, so you were accepting the document, or is there a motion to apply? Because that's the way I read it.
The motion is to, I think the motion would be to
Except that
apply.
she said.
Yeah, and we can clarify that. But I believe they asked for,
No, I know, I've read it.
Yeah.
But they asked for.
they asked for a motion to approve the application.
To approve the application.
Yeah.
When is this recognition to be issued? What's the?
I think it happens at the CABE convention, which is November 16th, 17th.
I
on the
just
first day of the convention.
Yeah, I just say with what I said last time, which is I think it's improper, and I think it's improper that and it's a political thing that's being brought. You're looking for our board to endorse a leadership award for yourself, Laurel, and the other three candidates. Well, Dave and myself and Stacy, we're not on the ballot this year.
Yeah.
Our names are nowhere while you guys are actively campaigning for re-election. At my 8 years on the board, we've used the CAPE self-assessment tool continuously. Nobody has ever brought up or suggested that we should apply for any self-congratulatory pat on the back that we've done a good job. I just don't see why that would come up this year all of a sudden. I think expecting people to believe that this is just purely innocent coincidence versus political puffery. It just strains credibility. And it's really unfortunate. We've never had this as a board, and I've been on this board for all these years, and really there's nothing special about this group of folks and you as chair beyond, more so than our other previous chairs and previous boards who have all done the same work and have brought the same kind of output forward every year that we've done. But this year, suddenly, there's this notion that we need to apply just prior to the election for this award for the board. I think the thing about ethics is it doesn't have to be a solid written, it's improper to do X ever. It's about the appearance of ethical violations, and I think clearly this meets that standard, and that's where I am. I'm opposed to it for that reason, and that reason alone.
I would agree with you if we were to find out before the election. But given that it's awarded on November 17th, 10 days after the election, the most we could say is we applied for an award, which in my mind holds no merit.
Well, I mean, I respond to that is that what it is, though, and I don't know how my other board members are going to vote, but the way our board normally votes, because, you can say, well, this is a pretty low-key thing, is we vote unanimously for most things. It's very infrequently that we don't all vote. So now you have anybody on the political team of the candidates here tonight writes a letter that says the Board of Education unanimously approved the leadership of Laurel and her team. Blah, blah, blah. Would someone do that? I don't know. I believe they would, but that's just, and I hate the fact that we even have to have this conversation. And to me, we've never been a political board, and I just, it's so sad and frustrating to see that die on the vine tonight with this motion.
May I have a moment to respond?
Yeah,
Because I've listened to you. I could not disagree more strongly with the implication that this is somehow politically motivated. What I would say is that this isn't a reflection on any single individual on the board. It is a reflection, I believe, as documented here, in the good work that this board has always done. And it's a reflection on the board as an entity, whoever is on the board on November 16th and 17th, or whenever at the CAPE convention when the awards are announced. It's silly that we haven't done this in years past. Frankly, we should have been, because you're right, we do the CABE, we use the CABE criteria when we look at ourselves for a board self-evaluation annually. And every year we go through those criteria and we assess our work as a board and talk about our strengths and where we can improve. We do a good job. And I think if any of us had been tuned in to this process earlier, we could have and should have explored it. Frankly,
I'd like to add something.
Yeah,
Laura,
go ahead,
can I
Mike.
add
Sure,
something?
of course.
And I understand where Tim is coming from, but I think, and I handled this in previous years, but I think our board has been evolving. There were a lot of things that we weren't doing that we couldn't document as well as has been documented on the addendum that you put together. I think we're a smart board. I think every single person sitting here works well, and you're right, this is by a bipartisan board. We don't wear our political hats when we come in here. So I hardly disagree that this is a politically motivated leadership award. I think it's to be recognized by our peers that we do a darn good job and we remain civil and our discourse is fruitful. We come up with good suggestions and resolutions. And so I think we deserve to be recognized by our peers, and hopefully we will get the award. There's no guarantee that we will. We might have to wait and see, but I think we should pat ourselves, all of us, on the back and just know that this has been an evolution.
I just think that the timing's probably bad. We work greatly together. Everything's unanimous usually, and I don't know if I need someone to recognize me at CABE that says I'm doing a good job. I mean, I think it's with internal. And one last comment, and I hate to even say this, but I'm going to, is it, and it's going to be part of my Board of Selectmen comments, is that at the last Board of Selectmen meeting, somebody got up and commented in public comment about the facility study and surrounding that, had never attended any meeting, had never been at any of the public discussions or focus groups or anything, but now as on the election ballot for this year, had to go up and grandstand political theater in front of everybody to make a stand on something. So I know it's not happening here, but it throws an element of doubt.
All right, I don't know what that has to do with this specifically, though.
It's just the whole, people do things that are unexpected at this time of the year for unnatural reasons.
All right. Are there any additional thoughts?
didn't think, I am proud of this board, and I do feel like we do a great job. I'm also a believer in, I don't need an award to know that. So
No.
I'm not hard set on, we need to apply for this award, but I know you've put a lot of time and effort into it, and Kate puts it out there as an option for boards to do. So this is happening across the state at this time of year with lots of people on ballots. So, you know, to say that it's a politically motivated thing, then maybe Kate should look at doing it a different time of year. Or, you know,
Yes, they should.
you know, something, because it shouldn't be politically motivated at all. Teacher of the Year, we have different things that people apply for and get not acknowledged for. So it's great that it exists. But the feeling that it is this time of year and that it could have any undertones, and I assure you, and I'm not married to it, so, you know, I can abstain from voting on this at all if it comes to a vote, so.
I think, Stacy, we haven't heard from you. Did you want to chime in?
I have no strong feeling either way. I agree, you know, about the timing, but I also think that every member of this board, no matter what political party we are, has had an opportunity and would continue to have an opportunity to be involved in CAPE at any level that we would choose to be involved. And I do believe, and I guess maybe I could be naive, I'm not a political expert, you know, I just, this is my first experience with public service. So maybe come after this is all said and done, after the election, maybe I will have learned something different. But at this point in time, I don't, in my heart of hearts, I don't feel it's politically motivated. I agree with Sarah that I might feel differently if the award was announced prior to and someone was going to use the fact that we won this award or achieved this award prior, you know, as part of a campaign tactic. But so I don't have a strong view either way.
All right, thanks, Stacy. All right, so where are we at with this? I mean, I think all I'd like to finish by saying is just that this is, I mean, this doesn't mean anything. It's just, you know, it's not worth anything. It is really just a way to acknowledge good work that we've done amongst Board of Education peers at the CAPE Convention on November 16th. You know, that's all I would say, I guess, at this point. There has been a motion made and seconded. So unless there's any further discussion, I think we'll call the question. Meg, remind me, your motion was to approve
the application for the award for leadership.
To approve the application for the CAPE Leadership Award.
Leadership Award, correct.
All right. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstention? Kim? And Stacy, I didn't hear your vote. I'm sorry.
I should have been an aye.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So the motion passes, and we can move on with that. All right. We're going to move to committee reports. And the first item is curriculum. The curriculum committee met Wednesday last week and had a good discussion with Eric about our annual report on district achievement data, and that will be coming to the board, I believe, at our next meeting on October 17th. So you can look forward to that presentation then. Stacy or Kim, did you have anything to add?
That was a great presentation, a lot of great data, a lot of hard work, very impressive.
Yeah.
Nothing to add, I'm sorry I had to leave.
Well, that's okay. All right, policy. We've been.
Policy's gonna meet on October 6th.
Yeah, we were working hard to nail a date down. We'll be on Friday. We should have something to report on at our next meeting. Personnel, we met, we discussed a couple of important personnel matters, none of which we visited tonight, but will be on the agenda at our next meeting. Buildings and grounds.
We don't have a meeting scheduled, but I expect that we will be soon enough when the ed specs are ready.
All right, crack, okay?
Not until the 18th of October.
Okay. Board of Selectmen, Dave.
Nothing significant other than there was this long drawn out, which I really don't understand, discussion over accept versus approve on the facility study committee.
It was painful.
So,
It was painful.
I really still don't understand it, but that's what it was.
And there may be more to come tomorrow night.
Yes.
Yep. Anything else? Are you good?
No, I'm good.
All right. Committee on Solidarity.
I don't know if they've had a meeting since their last. I know I wasn't in attendance.
Equity and Inclusion. I believe you all meet next week.
We have the 16th.
October 16th.
October 16th.
Which I think is right before our next board meeting. So
It is, no, as a matter of fact.
we'll hear from
So
you
at
then.
our next meeting, we'll have an update.
All right. Excellent. Audience of citizens. Do we have anyone with us this evening, in person or online, who wishes to address the board? Excellent. Can you just be sure to state your name and address for the record, please?
Hi, it's Diane Lopez. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Diane.
Hi, I am at 22 Old Carriage Road in Portland, Connecticut. So I've been coming to the board, I think, consistently since school began, and I just want to give a shout out to the Gildersleeve team on the awesome job about the Rise Beehive shop. God, I wish they had that when Seamus was there. He would have totally loved it. Great job to Ryan and the team. And I also want to thank Dr. Britton for fixing the IT issues and getting a phone in the room at the transition academy of biz. Totally agree with Dawn on the room is okay, if it's temporary, in the hopes that the kids are out in the community and less time in the classroom. And I just want to do another shout out to Ted. Fingers crossed, he is stellar. And as a parent, we will do anything we can to help support the classroom and anything to support him. So things that still need a little bit of work, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but some of you may know I've been advocating for Seamus since he started with Mrs. Kelly at 3 years old, and I'm not going to stop now. I'm in his corner, and I want to make these last few years he has in Portland as successful as in previous years. So transportation is still the biggest thorn in the side. It still continues to be the biggest obstacle. We range from pickup times to 9:05 to 9:35. And yesterday, Seamus was at the end of our walk, waiting for the bus with his arms crossed. I called the bus company, as Olivia suggested, and the response I got from the bus company is, Gina is out there somewhere, be patient. So, I went down that avenue, the bus finally came at 25 of 10, and we just know transportation is going to be a problem, and I really would hope it's going to get worked out as these kids get more and more jobs in the community. The good news is 3 Facebook community pages from Cromwell, Portland, and Glastonbury, and a tip from one of the parents at the last Board of Ed meeting. Steve does pay to come in person sometimes. A parent led me to SliceWorks in Glastonbury, who specializes in working with kids with disabilities. And the owner is a previous teacher, and I stopped in the day after the Board of Ed meeting, and she was awesome. They had kids there from the Glastonbury Transition Academy every day but Wednesday, and Wednesday is an open day. And the Glastonbury kids are there from 9:30 to 1:30. They make pizza, they prep the tables, they make garlic knots, they prep salads, they do all sorts of things. So a good news story is Ted is scheduling a field trip, as long as we can get transportation, to take the kids up there to see if it's something they would enjoy doing. And then we also had 4 other businesses reach out of places of interest that Ted is following up on. So that's a really good thing. You already heard about Dawn, as noted earlier. Hamish has been in school for 6 weeks, and he has had 1 speech lesson, and he's supposed to have an hour, I think it's an hour and a half a week of speech. And I swear, if you guys can line up the Cheshire group with video, Hamish did exceptional with the video speech with one of the gals during COVID from Cheshire. She was awesome. So if that works out, awesome. But by law, you're supposed to have these speech services. I totally understand. It's a problem everywhere. But as a mom, I have to advocate. That's one of his biggest deficiencies is speech. So also a shout out on the Sarah brought up Unified Theater. We did have it a couple of summers ago, and if I remember right, it was one of Jim Tripp's daughters, I think it was Rebecca, who did Unified Theater in the summer during the summer school season, and it was a huge success. So if that ever could come back to fruition, it was stellar. And that's all I have to say tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Sure, thank you.
Hi, my name is Michael O'Rourke. I live at 35 Apple Tree Lane. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yes, hi, Michael.
Good evening. My son Patrick is in the 10th grade at the high school in the Life Skills program. He's been in Life Skills since 7th grade at the middle school. With today's resignation of the Life Skills teacher that just started a month ago, it now will end up being that Patrick will have had his 5th teacher in 4 years. And I'm not sure exactly where things are going sideways as to whether we're just unlucky with who we're getting, or there's something else at hand. And so I would wonder as to whether enough support's being provided to them, if we're conducting exit interviews when people leave. I know some have left to go to administrator positions or something, something higher. But I think we need to analyze exactly what is transpiring to not have the level of turnover that we have. So, thank you.
Thank you, Michael. All right, was there anybody else online who wished to address the board? Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to Board of Education member comments. Let me start over here, Dave. Kim?
I'm proud to be on this board. I know the special ed stuff is so difficult, so Dawn, I commend you for pushing through and working so hard, and I hope it sounds hopeful with the getting the video SLP up and going, so crossing my fingers for you.
Thanks. Sarah?
Appreciation for the Gildersleeve staff who came out to present on the Beehive Snack Shop and Crazy Eights and the yearbook, and it's just really cool to hear what our students have access to in this district. So thank you to those of you that came out to present.
Yeah. Tim?
Good. I'm good.
Stacy?
I have no comment.
Meg?
I'm I would just say that ditto to Kim and Sarah's response. Excellent tonight.
Yeah, thanks. All right. We do not have an executive session on the agenda this evening. I guess I would only say, Meg and Stacy, I hope you both feel better soon. And yep, and Tim too with your shoulder. And other than that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Sarah. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Have a good evening, everybody.